Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Ohio Huntsman Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about our goals for the 2018-2019 season. So we're going to just kind of go around the table here, talk about anything really we're looking to achieve. But before we get into today's topic, let's do updates. So Jake, what have you been up to?
I haven't been up to too much. I did pull trail camera out from behind my house, pulled a card. Took my daughter back there, so that was fun. We went for a hike in the woods. So I ended up carrying her most of the way because she said the woods are scary. But went and pulled a card, took it back, checked it out. Same deer that had been showing up at my camera back there. I had put some corn out initially, but there was not any left. They had the coons, mostly raccoons, had gotten into it. But I did get the same deer, there is a pretty nice buck back there that he's still sticking around. The camera's not really in a location to get a good pattern on the deer, but we'll see. Kind of right now he's showing up during daylight, but a lot of things change when the velvet comes off.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with that. I'll kind of keep an eye on him. It's not really my top priority property. It's kind of a challenging place to hunt back there just because it's the proximity to residential housing and stuff like that. It's in and out. It's kind of a challenge, so I don't spend a ton of time back there. But I did get some kind of cool. I got some pictures of some coyotes, which I've gotten in the past in that area. There's a pretty good population of coyote, but I did get some coyote coming through. So the more the deer hang around and their scent starts showing up on that site, the coyotes tend to show up. But that's about it. I do plan tomorrow to hopefully get out to the horse farm and then also on the way out to the other farm out towards Youngstown. Hopefully get out there and check both those cameras. Hopefully everything goes okay with that, because the camera I did have out at the horse farm, I went and tried to check it about a week ago, I think, and turns out it was not functioning.
Oh, bummer.
So still a mystery as to what's out there. It was just seems like the camera just kind of took a dump. I can't seem to get it fixed. I tried to research it. Seems like it's something that happens with that brand of camera. It was a discount camera. I didn't spend a ton of money on it. But it's never good when it's more the intel that was lost that I'm more bummed about.
Yeah.
Camera's replaceable, but that 2-week period where it was soaking and I thought it was taking pictures, I can't get back. So hopefully it's not too late and I can get some sort of a pattern out there, because that property is a mystery to me. I don't have any idea what's there or where the deer are moving, when they're moving. So I'm trying to get something put together before season, figure out how I'm going to hunt it, when I'm going to hunt it, if it's going to be early season, if I'll wait till the rut, or if it's a late season property. There may be nothing on the camera. The deer may just use that in the late season.
Right.
So we'll see. I'm hoping to get those cards pulled and just kind of hopefully get an idea as to what's going on. But that's about it for me. Jeff, what do you have going on?
This week I put up a new ground blind. I'm excited about this spot. It's kind of a pinch point between some bedding and a feeding area. So I'm excited about the spot. I primarily put the blind up for my wife because she's afraid of heights, doesn't like to go into tree stands. So I primarily put it up for her so that she had a good spot. And I'm also excited about the spot because I really think it's going to be a good place to get in and out without being detected by deer. There's a really nice ravine that you can walk down in, all the way from the road to the ground blind. Just pop up right out of the ravine and go right in the back door of the ground blind. So I'm hoping
cool.
It's going to be really minimally invasive.
Hopefully keep your scent down in there, and sounds good. Access is important, so
yeah.
That'll be cool. So no other updates? I don't have anything. So with that, I guess we'll get into this week's episode. So like we said, we're going to talk about our goals for the 2018 season. So every year I like to sort of make some plans for the season. I think everybody has some aspirations as they go into the hunting season every year. So just kind of wanted to go around with you guys today, talk about what your goals are, talk about what my goals are, and see where the conversation takes us. So I'll start. I put a list together here, number of different kind of categories One of them I'll start off with is kind of simple, but I want to keep a hunting journal this year. So growing up, they always had that journal at the cabin where they would kind of write down what they saw that day, and it wasn't so much a scouting tool as just documenting the time. And I think that's kind of what I want to do. I want to try, see if I can stick to it. I think it'll be interesting for my kids to read someday.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, even to this day, even though we've already read that journal down at the cabin,
cover to cover,
cover to cover. Yeah, we still go down there and read it because it's nice to look back and see, what our dad and his friends were doing before we were even hunting down there. They talk about the areas, and you can kind of, from the way they explain it, you're like, oh, I know where that's at, by that old oil tank, or or whatever. So it's kind of cool.
Another funny thing about this is that Amber, my wife, she is very excited. She got the idea of making a hunting journal, so she's very excited. So maybe you guys can, share notes.
We can journal together.
Yeah.
It's cute.
So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's cheesy. I don't know. Maybe it'll be cool. Like I said, I don't think I'm gonna try and document it from the wind was this way, and use it as a scouting tool. I might, but I think my primary goal is just to kind of jot down some thoughts from the hunt, what I saw, just anything interesting.
Yeah, I think that would be nice. I mean, now that you bring it up, I mean, I might even try to do something like that just because it's good to tell the story.
Yeah.
What's going on and what you saw, what you didn't see.
Yeah.
If you froze your butt off, if you didn't, just kind of something to look back on so that there's some sort of story for, like you said, your kids to read, or someday our grandkids will read our story about, that one time when we went out and whatever, got rained on or froze our butts off or whatever.
Jeff fell in a creek.
Yeah.
True story.
So that's my plan there. Another thing that I really want to look into is we've got these properties that we've hunted, down at the cabin. We've hunted since we were little. We've got the farm out on the east side of the state, and we've hunted them, but I don't feel like I really have an intricate knowledge of how the deer are using the ground. I know for me, I just kind of have set up where there's good sign, but I don't really know, like, yep, for sure the deer are bedding here and they're coming down here to feed. Part of that is because there's no food plots or anything. It's not like there's well-defined, yep, this is the food source around. I think we could do a better job of understanding bedding, which I think could help us understanding how the deer are moving on the landscape. And so I really kind of want to spend some time this year looking at maps, but we've looked at maps a lot, but just like on the ground, kind of trying to put more of the pieces together so that I can build this mental picture of how the deer are using the property, hopefully to be a better hunter.
Yeah, I mean, definitely down at the cabin, I think that's down in southern Ohio, I think that's kind of the main, in my mind, learning that property, because I mean, it's a blend of, some private property we have permission on, national forest, and then there's a portion that's leased, and there's different spots down there, and kind of how it all goes together. I mean, we just assume the deer are hiding in the thick stuff, they're bedding in the thick stuff, which is, I'm sure, true on some level, but more of how do we utilize that information and use it to our advantage, especially prior to gun season. Down there, gun season, everything goes out the window because there's a lot of people, and it's a pretty rural area, primarily when it's not gun season. So those deer know when it's gun season because the car traffic goes up 100-fold. They know, and they go into their hidey holes, and you never see them. Because we've seen in the last couple of years, we put cameras down there, and there are big deer down there. I mean, you're not talking 200-inch Boone and Crockett deer necessarily, but there's respectable, mature bucks, and they don't get that way by making themselves seen when people have guns.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it would be interesting, especially we plan on trying to make a rut trip down there. We try to do that every year. That would be an important time, I think, to try and know where the bedding is, because that'll be where the does are, which will then pull where the bucks are. So I think that would be a good goal to try and figure out how the deer use that land down there kind of naturally.
Right.
I mean, during gun season, people are all over the woods, so the deer aren't acting natural. But in their natural progressions, it'd be interesting to know. I think we'd be surprised how much of that land is kind of void of activity that we're kind of wasting our time sitting in.
Yeah. Well, even down there, definitely. But even the farm out on the east side of the state, it's like, we've got access to a small chunk. A lot of it is ag field that once the crops come out is
barren wasteland.
Right, right. And so how are the deer moving from the neighboring properties, some of these other smaller wood lots, and connecting those dots, if you will? The deer are probably bedding in this wood lot, and they're maybe filtering across this field, or they're skirting the edge of this field to get over to this other area. Why are they doing that? When are they doing that? Those sort of things to try and hunt that more effectively. So that's one of my other 2018 goals. So to shift gears a little bit, from a food aspect, because we talked that food in hunting is a big thing. I want to try deer heart this year. I've never tried deer heart, never eaten it, never cooked it. So that's one of my goals for this year. I know I'm buddies with a guy, he's a chef, and I'm going to ask him for some tips on preparing heart, but that's one of my goals. You guys ever partaken on any of the wobbly bits, as Hank Shaw calls them?
I have not. In the last couple of years, I've kind of started tossing the idea around of using, because it's just part of utilizing the whole deer. I'd be willing to try heart or liver, or those type of things. I don't know that I would go into the brains and the eyeballs and those kind of.
Yeah, no,
not really my cup of tea, but the heart definitely. At this point, we, in the way we were brought up, you just discard all of that stuff. But I've heard from different people that they like that. It's some of the best meat that they get out of the deer. So I'd be willing to try deer heart.
I know a guy that asks me to save them. I've saved him a couple before and just never really done anything with them myself. But I've seen some pictures of people that have prepared it online. It looks good. Like they got it all sliced up and plated up, and it looks good, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, and also just the actual logistics of, because you shoot a deer way off in the woods, you got to have something to actually, you got it, and you got to actually have something to put the heart and the liver and whatever other, organ meat you want to take, and logistically it's just a little difficult.
Yeah.
Because I've removed the liver and stuff for other people, the heart before, but I've never ate it myself. Well, I may have eaten liver before.
Yeah.
Deer liver. I think when Dad cooked it just to try it.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't really like it.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't prepared any of the organ meat myself.
I've been carrying a gallon Ziploc bag in my pack, but like you said, like the hearts I have saved are been ones that have been kind of close to a vehicle or a home or something, because I don't it's going to be in a gallon Ziploc bag, but how banged around can it get in my pack before it turns to mush, sort of thing. And without trying it, I guess I'll never know.
Yeah, I would imagine that organ, that they're pretty delicate compared to another piece of meat. I would imagine they're delicate. I don't know though.
I mean, just based on anatomy, the heart, I would say you probably would be okay. I mean, your heart's a muscle.
It's just a muscle, yeah.
So all the meat you eat off a deer is muscle.
Yeah.
I would imagine it may bruise, or if you bang it around, doesn't have a whole lot of rigidity to it. But the liver might be a different story. That's not.
I never said liver. I'm just going hard.
Going hard. One thing at a time.
Yeah. Baby steps. So, I've got a couple more here, but if you guys, Jeff, you got some you want to, we'll kind of go around the table here, and we can come back to some of my other ones.
Well, my first one, now this one might be a little strange, is I want to kill a black squirrel, to finish off my Ohio Squirrel Grand Slam.
So I got a question about this. Is this Ohio Squirrel Grand Slam, is this a thing? Like if people Google Ohio Squirrel Grand Slam.
No, I made it up myself. I made this up.
So now it's a thing.
Now it's a thing.
But we need T-shirts and everything.
Yeah. I made it up, but
I saw a story in Field and Stream where a guy did like what they were calling the U.S. Slam, and there was like 8 species of squirrels.
Okay, yeah. I saw someone else talk about it after I had the idea, but I never had. I kind of made it a 3 squirrel thing because I never thought I would have the opportunity to kill a black squirrel.
Right.
So just for clarity's sake, let's go through this here. What is the Ohio Squirrel Grand Slam?
Because it's a thing now.
It's a thing now, so we need to lay it out as to what species are included. What are we looking for?
So you're looking for the gray squirrel,
Okay.
the eastern gray squirrel, the fox squirrel, the red squirrel, or the pine squirrel, as a lot of people call them. They're the real small ones. And then the crown jewel would be the black squirrel, which is a color phase of the gray squirrel.
Okay.
The only place I've ever seen a black squirrel is in the city, so you're planning on sniping one?
I'm on some in the woods. I know where some are in the woods. So I got a hot lead.
Why does that? What causes a black color phase gray squirrel? I know this is kind of off topic, but it's piqued my curiosity.
I believe it's just a genetic variation. It's just like brown hair versus blonde hair, except black squirrels are genetically inferior, if you will, because you can pick them out a lot better.
Right.
Hawks can see a black squirrel very easily, especially when the leaves are off the trees, so they can pick them out and snatch them up.
Huh. Well, that I'm going to jump back in here on one of my goals, because that is a nice segue to one of my other goals for this year, is to hunt things other than deer, like squirrels and rabbits. We did that growing up, but if I'm being honest, it's been years since I've done any squirrel or rabbit hunting. And my chef friend, we've talked about doing a wild game dinner as a fundraiser for our church. We go to church together, and kind of excited about that, actually. Hopefully, possibly expose people that have never had wild game to wild meat. And so part of that, I'm hoping to be able to provide some deer, some squirrels, some rabbits. I've got a turkey breast left, so maybe a turkey. We'll have to see. I don't know. That's my first turkey. I might be selfish and keep that for myself. But so yeah, do some small game hunting.
Yeah. And that kind of brings me back to one of mine.
Here we go.
Because another one of my goals is to eat more game meat. Squirrels, dove, maybe some rabbit. Discovered last fall that I was allergic to rabbit fur and blood.
I was going to say, I hope your goal is to not skin a rabbit this year.
So yeah, I can't touch those, but and try to convince my wife to eat a little bit. She'll eat deer. She loves deer, but that's about the extent of it. So I'm trying to expose her to some other game meat, and because I've had her try some other game meat, but it's more like, oh hey, I killed a couple of squirrels. Let's just fry them up or whatever, and I'm not really preparing them as a dish.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, my wife won't touch rabbit. She had a pet rabbit growing up, so she is anti-rabbit hunting.
They're off the menu.
They're off the menu, yeah. She doesn't even really want me to hunt rabbit. But like you said, we haven't really done much of that hunting in the last couple of years anyhow. So I don't know. She definitely would never eat rabbit. She may eat squirrel. I don't know. She just doesn't really have an interest in it. But if I begged her, she might try it and might be surprised. But
so Jake, let's switch to you. We've gone through a couple of ours. What do you got for some 2018 goals?
I guess kind of on that topic, to piggyback a little bit, one of my 2018 goals would be to shoot a wild turkey. Never shot a turkey, so that's one of them, would be to get a turkey in the spring. So I guess that technically would be 2019, but we'll call it 2018 season.
I kind of lump all that. I mean, even though technically I guess it's next year's hunting license.
Are you going to buy a fall tag in case one walks by while you're deer hunting?
I just thought of that idea just now when you said it. I never crossed my mind. I might. I don't know. Probably depends on where I'm hunting and if I've seen turkey there. So if I'm in a spot, because I'm not exactly sure what properties I'm going to hunt when.
You're talking with your bow? Is that?
Yeah, while you're bow hunting, if one happens to just walk by, I've harvested a turkey or two that way.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, it's your place. You got turkeys running everywhere, man. Every time you post pictures, there's turkeys. But I guess one of my goals, like I said, would be to get a wild turkey this year. Another one.
That's different, though. Like, one just walking by, that's
different than calling one in.
And would that be your first one?
That'd be my first turkey, yeah.
So you got to decide, right?
How do you want to get your first one?
Do you want your first one to be one that just happened to walk by?
Happened to fall into my arrow?
Right. Or do you want one that, you worked in on the calls?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
My first turkey was a bearded hen. So that, I called it in, but it wasn't a tom. So, I mean, that was...
Jeff's always got to be the oddball.
Always, yeah. I guess another one would be to try to take... I have some buddies that try to take someone new hunting. I just think it's important to try and share that with other people who don't either have the opportunity or just haven't been asked or, weren't raised in a hunting family. So I have a couple friends that I've tried. One, he hunts. He just originally from upstate New York, and he now lives in Ohio and just doesn't really have anywhere to hunt, post work schedule and that kind of stuff. So I keep asking him every year, and one year he was close, and then his kids got sick, I think. It was for gun season, so he didn't make it. And then ever since, it's been kind of work or different things. So I'm going to keep bugging him, see if I can get him down for gun season.
What about muzzleloader? Because I've got an extra muzzleloader now. Would he be interested in going down for muzzleloader or doing some muzzleloader hunting? I know we haven't gone to down south for muzzleloader.
Yeah, he might. I could ask him. I don't know. I've only asked him for gun week. I'd bring it up to him.
It's been brutally cold the past two, hasn't it been?
Yeah.
It's been terrible, but
last year was
we toughed it out.
Yeah, it was super, super cold. So that's one. Another one that I have here on my little list I wrote out. I have a goal of harvesting a mature deer before gun season. I kind of piggybacked that one off of last year, which I was successful in doing. It just makes gun season a little different when you already have one in the freezer. You don't have to put so much pressure on yourself to, get a deer to feed your family type thing. So it allows you to kind of relax a little more. And I know when we're down at the cabin, the older generation likes to spend a little more time sitting around drinking beer and chitty-chatting, telling stories.
We might have to leave him in the dust this year.
I know, because we're chomping at the bit to get out there because we just don't have as much free time. The one guy that's down there, he's retired, so he's able to go down there and hunt pretty much anytime he wants. And we just, probably the last 10 years, I haven't been able to take the whole week. I only have half the week. So I want to be in the woods as much as possible, and those guys want to spend a lot of time eating lunch and relaxing.
So here's a question for you on that. You said a mature deer, are you talking a buck or a doe? Because you said it takes the pressure off if you already have one in the freezer.
Yeah, on my list here I said preferably a buck, but I'm not going to let a large doe pass me either.
Okay.
Just because my primary goal is to feed the family and get a deer in the freezer. So especially if last year I was able to get a buck opening day, but the most likely place I'll be opening day as of now would be the farm out on the east side of the state. And in the past, the history of that farm is the deer disappear come pretty much after opening day. There's some other people that hunt the surrounding areas and also have permission to hunt the farm. And the differing schedules, I think, and it's just too much pressure on the deer, too many guys in and out of the woods.
Well, and we've gotten pictures of guys out there on four-wheelers and side-by-sides tearing through the fields.
Through the fields, right. So those deer either move to new property or they lock down pretty tight, I think, from probably the second week of September, probably through gun season. I would imagine those deer are pretty locked in, just because of the pressure, people in and out between our family hunting out there. And like I said, there's other guys who have permission. Unfortunately, the landowner out there has trouble saying no. So anyone who asks, basically, he, for the most part, lets them tromp around in the woods. So now the problem we have is there's a guy out there who specifically turkey hunts in the fall. So I know that brings a little animosity in for some of the guys who are deer hunters, because he's out there tromping around turkey hunting, which is typically more of a mobile style of hunting, especially in the fall, because the strategy, which we can get into on a completely later podcast, but typically your fall strategy is to walk around and blow the flock up, spread them out, and then call them all back together. So it's a lot of walking and crunching branches, and it pushes the deer far, far away.
Well, and I want to go back to, you said about the landowner out there lets everybody on, which is good and bad, right? I mean, it's bad for when you've already got permission and you kind of want to know where the people are and that you've kind of got, like, it's everybody's dream to have their own spot, right?
Right.
But it's good from the standpoint that not many people say yes anymore.
Right.
It's either public or you're paying for something. And I'm not saying that everybody's that way, but what we read on social and you hear about online and stuff is that it's hard to get permission on private ground.
Gotta knock on a lot of doors
if you don't know somebody already from another avenue.
Right.
So,
let's see what else I have here on my list for goals. Another goal I have, and it's something I've been able to do in the past, but it's just something that I like to try to focus on doing, is I'd like to harvest a deer on public land, just because it has different challenges with it. So a lot of times that for me personally, that would be during gun season. That's primarily when I hunt public land down at the cabin. Or like I said, we are doing a rut weekend type thing down there. So I might be able to kind of kill two birds with one stone if I get a mature deer on public land before gun season. That would be dream, I guess. But,
yeah.
So it's just kind of something else, just because the public land hunter, it's kind of a fading. I mean, a lot of people do it, but all the things you see in media typically is private, managed, big deer. So just being able to do that on public land where it's just as much hunting the people as you are the deer. And by that, I mean not hunting people, but you have to, you know what I mean?
Let's clarify
that. But the strategy is just as much knowing what other people are doing and how the deer are going to react to that than actually hunting the deer, so to speak. You have to try to figure out where people are accessing and how that's going to push the deer and where the deer might be staying to avoid the common people access routes. And
I feel like there's starting to be a resurgence in like the do-it-yourself thing. I feel like for a while there it got, the farms and the guided stuff got big, but there's a lot of guys that are doing the DIY. Well, let me rephrase it. There's a lot of guys doing the DIY where they can manage the property, right? They can put food plots in, they can cut timber, they can do whatever. But I also think there's a resurgence in that challenge of finding a mature buck on public land, Because like you said, there's a lot of other variables in there. Some of it comes down to dumb luck.
Right.
In some cases, you're in the right spot at the right time. But it's definitely an interesting goal. Jeff, do you have any more on your list? I've got a few more here.
My main deer season goal is I'd like to harvest a mature buck this year. In years past, my goal has always been to fill the freezer. If a mature buck comes by, that's great. And I've specifically hunted for bucks before, but I've never really went out and was hunting for mature bucks early in the season, intentionally seeking them.
So what are you classifying as a mature buck?
That's more or less going to be a judgment call, but I'm looking for something with a larger rack, a larger body deer. I don't have a point count or a score or anything like that. It's kind of going to be more of a judgment call. Whatever,
just something that gets your heart going, gets you excited. Looks like it's a big deer.
Yeah, and I basically I'm going to hunt for the biggest deer that I get on trail camera.
Sure.
The biggest couple. So whatever those are, that's what I'm going to go for, and I'm going to put more of an effort to harvesting one of them than I am just filling the freezer. I'm going to try to hold off filling the freezer maybe till a little later in the season.
So here's a scenario for you. So you are going to look at the couple largest bucks you have on your camera. What if come November you're hunting, it's the rut, and anything can happen in the rut, and you have a deer run by that you don't have any pictures of, you've never seen? Do you let it go because you're hunting one of these 2 or 3 big deer that you got on camera, or are you gonna take a shot at that deer?
Absolutely not. I'm going to take a shot at that deer. If that's
Okay.
if I deem it to be a mature buck, nice, I'm gonna take a shot at that one.
Okay.
But I'm gonna set my goal for, I guess, what's mature by what I'm seeing,
Sure.
and just try for the highest, the top of what I'm seeing.
So I guess correct me if I'm wrong, but to clarify, put it in a different wording. You're basically looking for a representative buck for your area, a large representative buck for your area.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
So you're not, like you said, you're not putting a score on it. You're not looking for, a 140 or a 150. You're just looking for something that resembles the larger deer you see on your property.
Yeah. And I would say even if it's not a giant rack, if that deer looks old and haggard, an old buck, I got one last year on trail camera during the rut, and it didn't have the greatest of racks, but it looked old.
Yeah.
It looked ancient. If that deer walked by, I think I'd harvest it if I could.
I think it'd be kind of cool to just, and again, this is just, not that I've harvested big bucks by any means, but I've always thought it would be cool to kind of just get an ugly buck. Something with just like a trashy, ugly rack on it that's just like, and obviously it would have to be some sort of a mature-ish deer to develop typically that type of antler growth, but just something that's
It's all scarred
up. Yeah, and just kind of a...
Ears are all ripped up.
Right, a beat-up old deer.
Blind in one eye.
Yeah, I prefer the unique bucks.
Yeah.
I'd probably harvest a smaller buck if there was something unique about it.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen pretty small bucks that, their antlers just take a 90-degree turn, just to the inside or, to the outside, and, something unique. I like that. I think that's more interesting a lot of times than just monster bucks.
Right.
So back on your goal, at what point do you flip your switch? What do you
mean by that?
And what I mean by that is, at what point are you going out of big buck hunter to meat hunter? You got to fill your freezer to feed your family. Is that gun season? When's your cutoff? Do you have a date?
Gun season, I'm going to focus on filling the freezer, I would say. and gun season's probably pretty close to where the cutoff is, because if I don't have the freezer filled, those weeks after gun season, the pressure really starts to mount to, get the meat. So gun season's probably a good arbitrary point. It's going to be more of a judgment call. I mean, my wife's hunting, so she may fill the freezer this year, and I may not harvest anything except for,
if you get a chance at a big one.
Right. We'll see how lucky she is.
Will it depend on property? Like, what I mean by that is, are you gonna target a big mature buck at your place, but down at the cabin? I guess because it's a $1 state, we're a $1 state. It can't really depend on property. You have to have if you're going for a mature buck on your property, then you have to pass all small bucks on other properties.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and kind of on that property, though, too, another thing, and I know, Jeff, I don't know how much you plan to hunt the farm out on the east side of the state, but the landowner out there specifically asked us to kind of put a dent in the deer population because he's a farmer and they get into his crops. So out there, I kind of have I don't want to say an obligation, but I sometimes have trouble letting the does walk because I know that's the way to kind of cut his deer population down to where they're not getting into his crops as much. And whether you or I or any of us would have an actual impact just because of the property out there. I mean, it's farmland. There's a lot of space. So if we take all the does off of his woodlot, I'm sure more deer are going to move in just because there's not a lot of cover.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the one thing that I toss around when I'm out there hunting. I prefer to, at least opening day, the first beginning of the season, I kind of toss around like, yeah, I want to shoot a respectable buck if, I'm not going to shoot anything else. But then, if a big nanny doe walks out, it's hard for me to not take it. If it's walks right into range, easy slam dunk, it's tough for me to turn that down.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens this year. It's easy to say I plan to only shoot a big buck, but at least for me, my adrenaline starts pumping still with any deer. It's just
hard to let any of them walk.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I mean, even the yearlings, I try to let them, I let them walk, but it still gets my heart pumping, just because it's right there and it's coming together the way it's supposed to. And
yeah, I kind of have a funny thing here. If a deer sees me, I feel more obligated to shoot it. I don't know why, but if it walks by and is oblivious to me, it's a lot easier for me to just let it go by.
Mm-hmm.
But if it goes by and it looks up in the tree and sees me and starts snorting at me or something, I don't know. I don't know if I get angry or it's kind of like, well, and then I'm a lot more likely to shoot it. If it spots me, I'm a lot more likely to shoot it, and I don't really know why. But if it just cruises by, typically I'll let it go.
Okay.
But when they spot me, it's like, well, now you spotted me, so
So you let an arrow fly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think for me, the last one, and this is kind of an ongoing goal for me, is just continuing to sort of refine my setup. Every year I try to make it a little better, make it work better. My gear, my kit that I take in. I used to just anything that I thought I might need went in my pack, and it was like this hugely heavy pack that 90% of the stuff I put in there I never took out, but I carried it around with me all hunting season. Now I'm trying to be much more thoughtful on what I'm putting in my pack. And not only that, but like when I put my tree stand up, I've kind of got a run and gun set up with a light tree stand and aluminum tree stand, aluminum tree steps, and my pull-up ropes, making sure they're the right length so that they're not getting tangled on stuff. And I want to I've done some research on adding some aiders to my tree step to get, a couple extra feet out of them. Because right now I'm carrying 4 steps, 4 of the Hawk, what are they? The Hawk Helium steps, I guess. They're lightweight aluminum. And I'm hoping that if I put an aider on each one of my steps, I can eliminate one of those steps and get to the same height that I was getting to with 4. I've seen some guys do like 2-step aiders. I don't know that I want to go that long, especially if I'm going to put it on each one of my steps. But you know me, I've always got to be tinkering with something, and so that's. I just ordered some 1-inch tubular webbing today to make these aiders. So we'll see. I'm hoping to be able to eliminate one of my steps, because they're pretty. I think they're 2-some pounds a piece. It's not a lot, but 2-some pounds is not insignificant either. So that's another one of my goals. You guys got any, Jeff? You got any more?
I have one more goal, and this one kind of ties into getting new people hunting, and it ties into a lot of the things we talked about. I'd really like my wife's family. They do on Thanksgiving morning. They do a rabbit hunt. They all go out and do a rabbit hunt, and we've tried it. On our side of the family. A couple of years, but it's always kind of last minute. Like, hey, you guys want to do a rabbit hunt tomorrow, before Thanksgiving? And this year I'd really like to try to invite more people and kind of really plan it. Try to get people out, and we have cousins and family that have never hunted before, and if we give them enough notice, they can, get the proper licensing so that they can come with us, and we can kind of show them the outdoors. And
speaking of licensing, what would they need if they've never hunted before? Can you get an apprentice license that would work for that?
Yes, they could get the apprentice license.
Okay.
Or they, if they choose to, they could, if they feel more comfortable, they could go through hunter's education, to get a little bit more information on, safety and stuff like that.
Okay. I know that's because, like you said, we've tried in the past, and holidays are hard, especially with kids and needing to go multiple places. It's like I basically have to get up and leave the wife to get Ella ready and everything, and come out and hunt. I think. I don't know. I haven't really thought through the logistics of it, but I know that's why it's been hard, is like, well, we've got to go 2 places, and if I go there early and hunt, then I don't have a lot of time to spend with family because we're going to be getting back in the car to go somewhere else, and so it's definitely a challenge. Jake, any other goals for this season?
The last one I had recorded down here on my list is, if the opportunity presents itself, I'd like to take my daughter out, quote-unquote, hunting. It obviously wouldn't be much of a hunt. It's more just get her out in a ground blind and just to kind of say we're hunting, because every time I leave the house to go hunting, it's challenging for her specifically. She's a little bit of a daddy's girl at this stage of her life, so whenever I'm leaving to go hunting, she wants to go with me. And I've always told her no, and actually it was our dad who last year kind of hit me with that, like,
truth bomb,
yeah. And he's like, why don't you just take her with you? And I said, well, because she's too loud, she make too much noise. He said, it's not about that, dude. I was like, oh, okay. So I don't know, if I get the opportunity, I'd like to take her out and sit her in a ground blind with me, and it won't last long. I mean, she's 3, so it's not gonna.
Yeah, that's real hard because, really, you're not going out to hunt.
Right. It would essentially be a wasted evening, quote unquote, if you call it wasted, but it would mean a lot to her, and I think it would be special. So.
Okay. Well, I think that's been a good kind of round table on our goals for the 2018 season. So we appreciate all the support, all the likes on Facebook and Instagram. Please subscribe to the show, the podcast, and tell your friends about it. take a screenshot of you listening to an episode, post it on social, share it with people. We're really just trying to become a resource for hunting in Ohio with good information about hunting in Ohio and some of the unique opportunities and challenges that provides. So subscribe to the channel. You'll get notified of new episodes, and stay tuned for next week's episode. Thanks.